Yeah, I wouldn't pick up a hitchhiking Loomis either. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. As part of the 2021 edition of my 13 Nights of Halloween series, today I'm going to be talking about the 1988 slasher sequel, Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers stars Pleasence, Ellie Cornell, and Danielle Harris, and was directed by Dwight H. Little. 10 years after the events of Halloween and Halloween 2, Michael Myers returns to Haddonfield in search of his only living relative. After the somewhat confusingly named Halloween 3, we have the very aptly named Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers. After all, it is the fourth Halloween movie, and the one where Michael Myers returns. Not only does he return from his seemingly definitive fate at the end of Halloween 2, but he also returns to the franchise. His absence in Halloween 3 was cause for much disappointment, and even anger among fans, but here he makes his return. His return to Haddonfield, his return to his neighborhood stalking ways, and his return to the mask. In many ways, this movie is a return to form, or at least an attempted return to form. Halloween 3 was obviously a bizarre standalone experiment, and although Halloween 2 was a direct continuation of the first film and similar in many ways, it still felt entirely different. With Michael Myers' return, the franchise had the opportunity to return to its roots. The houses and neighborhoods of Haddonfield, Michael on the loose once again stalking a babysitter and her charge. At its most basic, the plot here is so similar to the first movie that you could almost knock the film for it. But it was intentional, and there's something oddly comforting about the familiarity of it all. Halloween 4 is the first Halloween movie not to open with the classic jack-o'-lantern shot. Even Halloween 3 paid homage in its own unique digital way. But Halloween 4 does still set the chilly, desolate fall tone with a series of rural shots. It may be missing the iconic opening, but there are so many callbacks to the original film to please fans. Michael's background sit up and turn, the mask appearing in a shadowy doorframe, the clown costume, even the use of probably now intentional bouncy Steadicam shots. That effectively builds tension in the same voyeuristic way as the first, because we never quite know if the scene we're witnessing is through Michael's eyes or merely through the camera lens. After the events of Halloween 2, it was certainly difficult to come up with a way to continue the Michael Myers story arc in any sort of believable way. If people thought the Halloween to Halloween 2 continuation was a stretch, this story continuation is a huge, illogical jump. But the filmmakers took that jump and just ran with it. The continued existence of both Michael and Loomis is a stretch, and the whole plot is kinda silly, but it does manage to stay mostly engaging. Not that the previous films in the franchise had been ironclad tales of logic, but this movie certainly has more than its fair share of plot holes and things that just don't make much sense. There are attempts to flesh out some things and provide answers over the course of this so-called Thorn trilogy, but a lot of it's left pretty vague here. Why does Michael care so much? Why is he continuing his pursuit even after switching victims? Why did these people think it was a good idea to transport him the day before Halloween? And what is going on with Loomis's facial scar? As eye-rolling as certain components of this film's plot are, the introduction of the character of Jamie does present a new element to the story. She's just a little kid, played with unexpected poise and seriousness by Danielle Harris. But at least in the Michael Myers Halloween films, we'd never seen kids truly in danger. Tommy Doyle and Lindsay were adjacent to danger in the original film, but they were never a target. It was always the teenagers. So there's this new level of vulnerability here, especially when Jamie's alone. But she's not alone that often, and is frequently accompanied by her foster sister and resident babysitter, Rachel, who's probably my favorite character in this movie. She's more competent than most of Michael's teenage victims, and is a worthy successor to the lead babysitter role. And then, of course, we've got Loomis, who's as Loomisy as ever. He's perhaps a little toned down from normal towards the beginning, even though he just walks into a river like it's not there, but he starts to escalate to his usual entertaining insanity once he's at the police station, and ends in typical overdramatic fashion. As far as Michael Myers, in his triumphant return, he's kind of interesting. Although labeled as not human many times by Loomis in the first two movies, you always felt like there was a way to stop him in those films. Here, that feeling is less certain. He seems to be everywhere and capable of just about anything. Halloween 4 almost feels like a happy medium between Halloween and Halloween 2. There's a lot more action here than the first film, and there are some unique and creative kills, but it's not quite as gory and gruesome as the second film. Michael engages in some trickery and impersonation this time, harking back to his ghostly costume in the first movie. In fact, overall, he feels much more like the calculating stalker Michael from Halloween 1 than he does the zombie-like Michael from Halloween 2. But man, does his mask look awful here. Not to mention incredibly inconsistent. I guess that's what you get for just grabbing it off the shelf at Vincent Drugstore. Halloween 4 certainly has a traditionally 80s slasher feel to it, but does come somewhat close to the original Halloween. Not in mood or execution or even quality, but in feel. If anything, it reminds you of the original film. This fourth installment flies by though, and feels kind of rushed at points. It's got a very brisk 88-minute runtime, but that's probably for the best, because any longer and it would have felt like it was dragging. Other than the characters of Jamie and Rachel, the film doesn't really make you care about anybody. So there's not a ton of emotional investment here, and it does devolve into that Friday the 13th feel where you're almost rooting for the killer at points. With its silly situations and occasionally even sillier imagery, this movie easily could have just been an underwhelming and mediocre sequel. But then we get that ending. This is a spoiler-free review, as always, so I'm not going to say anything else, but that ending is just perfect. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number 1 is what I just mentioned, and that's the ending. Like I said, no spoilers, so I'm gonna be super vague about this, but man, it's just so good. I have a feeling this is one of those endings that people either love or hate. So this could be something that's on the con side for some people, but I think it's perfect. It's unexpected and sort of shocking, but really fitting. I wish Halloween 5 served as a better follow-up to the final moments of this movie, but that doesn't impact this finale sequence here. The second pro is a bit of a carryover from my pros of the first movie, and is the tension. Now, I don't think this movie comes anywhere close to the levels of ominous and almost suffocating tension that the original film does, but I do think it has its moments, especially when the focus is on either Jamie or Rachel. Once again, I think the unsettling human-like camera movement really helps with building this tension, and of course, John Carpenter's classic Halloween theme doesn't hurt either. On the con side, the biggest issue is that the main plot doesn't really make any sense. Now, I know, it's just a movie. It's the fourth film in a horror franchise. What do I expect? And I'm not saying it's something that kills this movie for me, but it's a movie where you really need to put in effort to reach that extra suspension of disbelief for that premise alone. The fact that not only Michael, but Loomis survived Halloween 2 is beyond absurd. And then there's just this series of plot conveniences. Of course they would move Myers the day before Halloween. Of course he would just happen to wake up from a 10-year coma. Of course he would now go after Jamie, somebody he's never seen and who wasn't even alive when he was last conscious. They try to sort of retroactively make sense of things in the sequels, but this film alone doesn't make much sense. The second con is how rushed it feels. This movie doesn't even take 10 minutes to establish all of the key characters, expositionally explain 10 years of history, and then set the events of the film in motion. Plot progression moves at breakneck speed, but the movie isn't without its occasional oddly long dialogue-heavy scenes, so there's definitely some pacing issues as well. Unlike the original film, this movie never gives its story or characters time to breathe. Somehow, Halloween 4 is only 3 minutes shorter than that first movie, but it just flies by without making too much of an impact. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm going to give Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, 3 out of 5 paws. It's certainly a lesser effort when compared to the first Halloween film, but this movie does a better job than its story predecessor of attempting to recapture that magic. It's full of plot holes, but it's got some nice tension and a killer ending. I would recommend Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, to fans of the first Halloween film who want to see a slightly more 80s slasher take on the story. This one retains the neighborhood setting, while ramping up the action and some of the cheesiness. It's one of the better Myers sequels, so if you were disappointed by his absence in Halloween 3, this might be one for you. If you liked Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, I would recommend the original 1978 Halloween. This is probably an obvious choice, and I know it's one that I recommend a lot in this review series, but there's a reason for that. It's the best one. That film serves as a template for this one, and establishes many of the key characters. If you enjoy the Jamie Lloyd storyline and connection here, you should check out Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. It's a bit of a step down from this one, but continues the story arc started here. If you want a slasher that's a little more fun, you might want to watch Freaky. It's a horror comedy that basically crosses slashers with Freaky Friday. It's got quite a different story, but there is one key similar element that fans of this one will probably find fun. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite horror movie ending? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe if you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies. The way life should be.